we're going to start with a masterclass on property technology. Very excited about this. Dr. Roland Igbenova is a colleague, has been a colleague for quite a long time, and he's the founder of the Nigerian Proptech Association. Among a whole hat stand of additional hats that he wears in support of affordable housing in Nigeria. We've been working together for a very long time, and he is certainly passionate about the opportunities to be found in affordable housing and the critical need for those solutions to be found within Nigeria. So that will be our first session. It will go for 2 hours, and I believe he's bringing some guests with him as well, and to go into the detail of the role of property technology in support of affordable housing across Africa and possibly particularly in Nigeria. Then at 12 o'clock, I'm very excited that we'll have an input by Shalabh Sharma, who's the Deputy General Manager of HDFC Bank in India. And Shalabh will be giving a presentation on the affordable housing situation in India and the role that HDFC Bank has played in supporting the growth of affordable housing across that very large and densely populated country. I think there's lots that we have that we can learn from the Indian context. And so we're looking forward to that as well. And there's Roland. Hello, Roland. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Kesia. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thanks
well
so
done.
much.
Well done for these past days. This has been wonderful.
Oh yeah, no, I've enjoyed it very much as well. It's really been so interesting. There's a lot of sessions that I missed actually because of the double stream. So I'm going to look at those offline. We've got them recorded, and they're on our YouTube channel. So I'll go look at them afterwards. The last thing, as I just finished my introduction before it's your turn, Roland, is that at 12:30 we'll have a conversation about the data agenda for Africa. And this is something that CAF, that the Center for Affordable Housing Finance in Africa, my organization that we've been promoting across the continent, is to really improve the quality and the breadth of data that is available for affordable housing across the continent. And that would be data that would be provided whether by the public sector, by the private sector, by the development institutions. And how do we choreograph that all together to create a platform of data so that we can all make better decisions about investment in affordable housing? And we'll be going into detail about that. And that's an hour session. And then at 1:30, we will close. And the chairman and vice chairman of the AUHF, Andrew Chimponda and May Abdelhamid, will come and join me, and we will close the 36th annual conference of the AUHF, and that will be at 1:30. So now we're going to start this class, the masterclass on Proptech, and you will all be in Roland's hands for the next 2 hours. And I know that he's got lots to share with you and lots that's of interest. Please, can I ask that you all introduce yourselves in the chat? I'm sure Roland can watch that as it goes along so that he can see who's there, and that would be nice to know. This is a class, so we want to have more interaction. Please also put your comments and questions into the chat as well. And Roland, I'm sure you'll be moderating that, so you'll take a look at what the chat says, and then weave your responses into your overall presentation. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to back away now, and I'll be here if you need me. But basically, this is your show. It's entirely in your hands.
Thank you very much, Kesia. Thank you very much. And I also just want to thank all our participants who've come on board this morning with us. So just like Kesia has mentioned, a deep dive into Proptech, basically in Africa and what's happening. I'm assuming right now that everyone can see my slides, right? I just need to be sure.
I can see it. Yes, it's fine.
Okay,
I'm quite sure everyone else can too.
Okay, great. I mean, once you can see, then that's fine. So basically, well, over the course of the 2 hours, we're going to be looking at defining Proptech, and there are several definitions for Proptech. There are different, since the advent of Proptech over going for about a decade and a half, it has evolved over different regions, and people have defined it in several ways. So we're going to be looking at what Proptech really is. And I'm also going to be using a value chain that CAF, which is the organizers of this conference, have modeled to try and talk about Proptech really, just to bring it home. And then we look at the drivers for Proptech. Then we look at what COVID-19 has brought and the needed transformation, why Proptech is something that we should all start to talk about. And then I also mentioned deploying Proptech, and that will take me to our panel session where I have Jevan, Jide, Oluwanifemi, and Madite, from across the region, from Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, looking at several case studies of how Proptech has helped, and we're going to be drilling down to affordable housing. And then we'll look at the questions from the participants, and then the panelists will help in answering some of the questions. So this is how I'm looking at. We will run over the 2-hour period. And so what is Proptech really? Which is property technology. And a definition by Baum, who's a professor, and Desley from UNISU, have said that Proptech is one small part of the wider digital transformation of the property industry. They've described it as a movement driving a mentality change within the real estate industries and its consumer regarding technology-driven innovation in the data assembly, transacting, and design of buildings and cities. So basically what Baum and Desley are saying is that, Proptech, it's part of the wider digital transformation that is happening. And we're going to be talking about some of these digital transformation. I think the one that is clear to everyone across the region is fintech. Fintech has taken a whole lot of space and attention within the technology space. Just recently, one of Nigeria's startup we hear was acquired with over 200. That's talking about Paystack, with over $200 million. So that's the kind of thing that has happened within the wider digital transformation space. And this is where property technology is looking at also situating itself. Now, basically, the way I see property technology, and also the way a lot of our colleagues and enthusiasts is looking at this, is basically reimagining real estate. Okay, and so when we say reimagining real estate, basically we're talking about the fact that it is no longer real estate as it used to be. So now we're talking about real estate as a service. So it is going beyond just transactional. It's not talking about customer experience. It's talking about speed of transaction. It's talking about ease of transaction. And we're going to be looking at all of this. But basically, the concept of property technology is just helping to reimagine the entire value chain for real estate in such a way that customer experience is at top notch. Now, if you look at the region, last year when I first shared this masterclass, the map looked somewhat the same, but with a lot of changes that have happened between Nigeria and South Africa. As of last year, I think Nigeria was around 45 Proptech startups. And what is interesting, and it has grown to about 75 startups now, what is interesting is that people are beginning to find that there is a nexus between what is happening in brick and mortar versus what we can do in technology. And so right from the what I would say the easiest, which a lot of people call the property listing, up onto facility management, we've seen different application, different startup come up in Nigeria. And this is why I've also gotten the panelists to come and share their experiences in the work that they do in the different regions. But this is what the Proptech space is looking at. Nigeria and South Africa seems to be in the forefront of that. But what is interesting is if we look at how much has come into Proptech in Africa, it's not much. The estimated amount for Proptech in Africa for 2020, before the COVID outbreak, the estimate was about $20 billion. I think in 2019, the final, the Proptech industry closed with about $13 billion. And if you look at how much of that has come into Africa, it is very, very infinitesimal. And this is why we are continuing to talk about property technology, get everybody to understand what property technology is, bring in traditional real estate players who have the muscle and the resources to be able to incubate and accelerate Proptech startup, so that we can begin to see solutions across the value chain. Now, having looked at that definition in its simplest form, if you look at my screen, so Proptech is cutting across what a lot of people call real estate, financial technology, smart real estate, shared economy. Now we're seeing a lot, and I'll just go bit by bit in these bubbles what all of this is looking at. Okay, I mean this was developed by Oxford by Professor Baum. This Venn diagram by Professor Baum when he was looking at property technology 3.0 in the publication that he published, I think it is in 2018. Now, so when you look at smart real estate basically is talking about Internet of Things. You're talking about if I'm driving to my estate, how do I interact with the facility management? So, for example, from my car, can I get my gate open? This may have been happening many years, you know, which may not be a new innovation, but just situating this in Proptech is helping to develop that space more. So as I'm approaching my gate, because I have some sensors within the gate and the car, I'm able to drive in. As I'm getting into my house, I have all my appliances all set up before I get to the house, the ACs, the TVs. These are all smart real estate. And all of this is transcending to also smart cities, which is something that we will talk about later. So you have that Internet of Things that is at play when you come to talk about smart real estate. And this is also very evident in a lot of facility management companies who are now delivering solutions where they're able to gauge energy levels, where they're able to determine the use of energy by each apartment in a block of apartments. And all of that is helping the tenant-landlord relationship. Then you come to the area of shared economy. Now, I would like to put shared economy with also collaborative economy. And the best example outside of Proptech that has done this very well is the Uber transportation system, right? But what we have been seeing, or what we were seeing, the trajectory before COVID-19 was that we were seeing a lot of shared spaces, you know, both in office space and in residential space. I mean, in this masterclass, we're going to just concentrate on the residential space. So, for example, in Nigeria, we were beginning to see a lot of startups who were looking at getting young school leavers and who have just gotten jobs to be in like a 2-bedroom apartment where they can share, where each person is in each room, but they can share the sitting area, the kitchen area, and all of that. We're beginning to see that grow, and there were a lot of startups in Nigeria who's built their business model around the sharing economy. If we look at the US and Europe, which is really big and massive in sharing economy as it concerns Proptech, we will see that there have been a lot of companies who have also followed this path. And then you talk about the intersection, the really intersection between property technology and fintech, which is the real estate and financial technology. Basically, this is all talking about payments and how to conclude transactions on real estate portal. So there was the integration of fintech where you actually bring companies who are payment gateway onto property technology platform. So I mean, good example of this is like Open Door in the US, who also did this very well. But what we have also found with some of the real estate startup here is there's been an integration of whether it's Flutterwave, whether it's Space-Star, onto all of this property technology platform. I'm sure Mr. Jide is going to also talk about that intersection when he starts to talk about his property technology portal. But this is basically what we are seeing in the property technology space. And all of this is driven by a few factors that I will come up to. But data is very critical in all of this, to be able to generate data to also understand how the space is being, how the space is emerging. And so I was saying, what are the drivers? And I picked up this slide from our Nigerian Proptech Technology Conference that we did last year in 2019, and this was some work done by Northcote Real Estate. Now, what are the drivers? If you look at the drivers, and from bottom up, what you see is it's for property technology, the need for customer experience. Okay, today we talk about customer experience much more than we're talking about customer service. And so that experiential feeling when I come onto, whether I'm in your office or I'm in your online space, becomes very critical for real estate technology. Remember, I said that we're moving real estate from just transactional to real estate as a service, in which case it's almost like you are taking it bit by bit, or you are experiencing a solution in such a way that the entire experiential feeling is taken home. And also we have the emergence of new technologies, talking about both soft and hard technologies. So we've seen a lot of, again, in terms of the hard technologies, we've seen a lot of Internet of Things coming up. So in Nigeria now, for example, we have one or two real estate firms where if you're going to inspect the property, whether to buy or for rent, you don't really need to go with an agent. A hardware has been set up in the apartment such that you get a code from once you make an interest to inspect a property, you get a code, and that code enables you to get to the front door of the house, put in your code, and you can do your inspection all by yourself. Once you're doing that inspection, there's camera all over the place, which also secures the owners of the apartment from either maybe a prospective tenant wants to remove anything or destroy anything. So all of these are emergence of new technologies. Right? Now, another big factor is the rising mobile phone use. And this is really, really, really massive across, not just in Nigeria, but across the region. With a lot of people getting on the internet, with a lot of mobile phone use, and with a generation that is clearly having a huge change in demographics, talking about us being having a lot more Generation Z kind of people, it just means that the ease with which to do transaction is a huge determining factor for them to do business. And this is, we have seen, is a huge driver for a lot of the property technology. And then we've seen development of real estate startups. And the interesting thing that I'm very excited about is the fact that I'm beginning to see traditional real estate companies, okay, get into developing real estate startups. Again, like I said, we have a case that we're going to be presenting during the panel session, which Jide is going to be talking about. So what we have been trying to do in the Nigerian Property Technology Association really is to get the likes of traditional real estate companies like up to 5, not only develop their real estate startups, but to begin to kind of incubate and accelerate startups. And we are beginning to see that happen in the market. And this is also because of the engagement that has continued to happen. It's because of master classes like these that we've done to dive in deeper for institutions and organizations to understand what is all this talk about property technology. And again, I'll say this here for a lot of traditional real estate players who's also here, property technology, Proptech for short, is not just about ICT. It's not just about getting hardware into the real estate business. No, it's about looking for that solution, creating that solution that the customer enjoys, that make it easy for customers to do transaction, that reduces cost for the customer. And in a post-COVID world, we're looking at a customer experience that enables the customers to do business from the confines of their home or their offices. Another huge driver is data. And although in the region, we are continuing to push and advance the need for data, but some of the data that is also being gotten are being used in terms of real estate transactions that we're getting. So a lot of the traditional real estate players who've been doing business for a while are also beginning to understand the relevance of their data so that they can look up at the back of the transactions that they have done, and they can actually see the kind of demographics of the people who are doing business with them. And that is also helping them to take a different approach to how they begin to do real estate business. And this is the definition that I've adopted over the course of time. This is a fantastic job that was done by Kesa and her team a few years ago. I can't remember exactly when now. But basically, if you look at my screen, this is a value chain for real estate. So from access to land, to planning and building regulations, to infrastructure and services, to construction and building materials, to construction finance, to end user finance, and to what I would call facility management, which is operations and maintenance. Across each step of this value chain, property technology can occur. And this is really the message that I'm trying to bring to all of the traditional real estate players. I know that you cannot use technology to create land. It's impossible. There's no amount of coding. There's no amount of coding that you can do that will enable you to create land. But access to land becomes very critical with property technology. And I'll talk more as we go along in the presentation. Planning and building regulations. I'll give you a typical example. And I think I have it further down the slide. But it's a good point to talk about it as well. The Lagos State, for example, the Lagos State government, for example, over the course of the last 18 months, have been working on LASRERA, which is the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority. Now, what LASRERA is doing, for example, is helping with planning and regulations of real estate and agency business in Lagos. At the back end of the LASRERA portal, we are beginning to see the different activities that are coming up with real estate. And what LASRERA has done is to say, hey guys, if you are a real estate developer in Lagos, or if you're an agent, someone who's doing agency business in Lagos, we need you to register with us. Once you've registered with us, we need you to record all the transactions that you're doing. So if you're an agent and you just let out a 3-bedroom apartment, we want you to register it on the platform. If you're a developer and you are doing 100 units of housing in some part of Lagos State, we want you to register that. And there's a law backing that. Now, with the construction of the Lasrira portal, as developers begin to register, we begin to see a mapping at the back end. Now, what does this mapping tell any investors? It means that if I go to the back end of the Lasrira portal, I can actually see how many 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms coming up in different parts of Lagos. And that immediately helps investment decisions. So this is just an example of how property technology is helping across the value chain. If we come to infrastructure and services, we've seen a lot of facility management companies develop products and services for infrastructure. Construction and building material sectors, we've seen aggregation of portals, and there's still a huge opportunity for this. But in parts of Nigeria, and also I know in Ghana, we're seeing construction and building materials aggregation. And this is being done on Proptech platform, where you can actually get on the platform and get all kinds of building materials at the most reasonable cost. And so, again, to construction finance, we've seen, in terms of construction finance, what is happening in Nigeria, for example, is we've seen regulations being, exposure draft and regulations being discussed around crowdfunding, which is something that is going to revolutionize property technology within the Nigerian space. So we've seen a lot of, not just even construction finance, even on the demand side, end user finance, we're beginning to see aggregation, we're beginning to see crowdfunding, we're seeing installment payments, as we will see in the presentation from Stowe. And so across the value chain, there are opportunities for property technology. And this is why I'm very fascinated with this slide from Carl. It eases my explanation to tell everyone and continue to share the message that across this value chain for real estate, we can begin to integrate technology such that customer experience is at a significant level, and such that affordability and the ease to do transaction is also at a very significant level. So, as we have come to that definition and hopefully the understanding of what property technology is, 28th February 2020 in Nigeria was a day that brought about a huge change. Elsewhere, or in several other places in the world, they have experienced their own coronavirus. But for us here in Nigeria, and I also like to get the experiences from South Africa, when Madita is speaking, and also when Jevan would speak, we'll talk about what happened in Kenya. But 28th February was very pivotal. And so it just reinforces the point where we cannot neglect Proptech, especially when we talk about residential real estate. And it has brought about a strategic inflection point. Okay, I pulled up this slide from the work at from a Columbia professor talking about strategic inflection. And if you look at the slide, what COVID-19 has done is brought us to a point where it's either you want to stick to the old paradigm, okay, and you begin to see a downward trend, or you want to accept the change and get to the new paradigm, in which case, you know, your business will begin to look up in the up trajectory rather. Now, what usually happens at strategic inflection point like this is there is often a dissonance gap, and that dissonance gap is where people are thinking, we're just going to return to status quo, right? And so a lot of companies may say all of these things about doing transactions online, all of these talk about property technology, is it going to happen or not? Whereas a lot of new companies, traditional real estate companies, will begin to accept the new paradigm. They begin to accept the change, and they then begin to deliver services and create products that ensures that they maximize the opportunity that a situation like COVID-19 is bringing. And so I'm saying this to say that the strategic inflection point, has never been clearer post-COVID or with the happening of COVID, especially as it concerns property technology. And I just think that traditional real estate players should begin to embrace the new paradigm for transactions. And we have, from some of the developers that we have spoken to, even during COVID-19, we've seen results of how a lot of them who had online presence continued to make sales in terms of their real estate transactions. But again, the point is to say that we are at a strategic inflection point, and this is the time where people need to recognize that the change needs to be made for property technology. And going on with the work from Columbia University, I also just said that I needed to share this with everyone about the transformation that is happening within the property technology space. And so this is an equation for transformation, looking at the dissatisfaction with the current state, the vision of the future state, and the process that removes obstacles. So basically, what property technology is helping to do is that process of removing whatever obstacles that is enabling us to get to the desired state. Now, I'm not saying that property technology is a silver bullet that will help affordability, or it will ease land and the issues associated with land titling, registration, and all of that. But you see, if we are currently dissatisfied with the current state of things, especially with residential real estate across the region. I mean, we just released the yearbook, and you would see what is happening across the region in terms of the state of housing. So if we are currently dissatisfied and we want to have a vision for the future, then the process to removing that, property technology is helping to do that. And like I shared in the previous slides of the value chain, across this value chain, for us to achieve transformation, we then need to begin to create solutions that will help to achieve that transformation. And the good news is that traditional real estate companies do not have, in their quest for transformation, do not have to start to create all of these products themselves. Like I said, there are over 75 startups in Nigeria alone. And across Africa, close to about 150 startups who are providing solutions at every point of that value chain. And so the message is, traditional real estate companies can begin to either accelerate or incubate a lot of these startups to help them provide solutions that remove obstacles in their transaction. And that is what this transformation equation, that is how I'm applying it to property technology. And again, like I said, in Nigeria, we have over 75 companies growing who are willing, who are out there, and they are ready to help in providing solutions across that value chain. And in a world where everything is on the internet, like I mentioned before, technology becomes very pivotal, right? And we've seen what the internet has done. And so this just tells us that whether we like it or not, whether you are government, whether you are private sector, whether you're a private sector player, whether you are a traditional real estate player who's been on for over 50 years, the internet is here. There's greater access to information, products and services. A lot of people. Okay, so I'll slow down so that I don't get ahead of myself. But in Nigeria, for example, house hunting has become a lot more convenient, right? A lot of people, before you want to call up an agent, that's the first thing you want to do. But today, you want to check listing portals to see what's happening, to see what's available, even before you begin to get to the agent who would help you then close the transaction. With internet, traditional communications and print media, it's almost having, or not almost, it's having a huge competition because advertising online has become cheaper. And also with the internet, a lot of analysis is being able to be carried out concerning websites and all of that. Now, what is all of this doing? It just tells you that with technology, on an upward trajectory, there is no way we can continue to do business as usual. And what it just means is that a lot of the real estate firms who are still in the dissonance gap stage, where they still don't believe on Proptech, need to continue to look at the internet and continue to look at the opportunity that it provides for everyone today. And so, again, with property technology, it's also very interesting how everyone is e-learning today. So on the backdrop of the internet and on the backdrop of the e-learning, and this is the inflection point that COVID-19 has brought. Okay, so the world is now a small village. Almost everything is built on technology. And we've seen all kinds of spot messaging apps. And so today you find that a lot of e-learning platforms, that were hitherto struggling, are now on the forefront. Okay, we are doing this massive conference online. Why? Because there is a turnaround point where everybody needs to understand that if my business is not yet on that, if I'm a real estate developer and I'm not looking at that value chain where I can begin to deploy technology, then it may just be that in another 5 years I'm out of business. And this is why we are preaching this message, right? And that, when you talk about the reimagining of real estate, I also want to come to a point, where I should just explain that this is not just about digitization. This is not just about bringing in gizmos. Okay, it is beyond that. Proptech is a lot beyond that. Like I mentioned before, it's about CRM. How are you managing your customer? What kind of experience does your customer get when they either walk into your office or they come to your platform? How easy is it to navigate your platform? The solutions that the customer wants, can he get it on your platform? What kind of knowledge base are you providing on your platform for the consumer? So it's not just about digitization. It's about, and we know that with real estate, especially with residential real estate and driving down to the demand side of mortgages, for example, there's a lot of education that needs to be done. So whether you're on the supply side or on the demand side, how are you reimagining residential real estate for the buyer? How are you what is the experience that I get if I walk into your office or if I come onto your platform to want to buy a property? Do I feel safe? Do I feel secure? Do I feel that my best interest is what you are out for? And this is what Proptech is trying to achieve or is helping to achieve. How are you scaling your operations for the benefit of your customer? Okay, how much investment are you making just to make sure that that experience of your customer it's happening? And a typical example, which is known, a Proptech firm which is known globally out of the US and also that is known globally, is Zillow. Now, Zillow started out just trying to provide information for people. Okay, you want a house, this is where you want the house, what's the price of the house, how much did the house last sold, just information. That is how today Zillow runs in excess of billions of dollars. Okay, so how are you scaling your operations for the benefit of your customer? Are you just about selling a house, buy, or you are looking at the customer from a point of view that whatever you're doing is for the benefit? Why you do this, and also ensure that you're focused on the returns to your investor. And this is what basically reimagining real estate is, and this is what property technology is really doing. It's about the customer experience. It's about how you're putting everything, to ensure that the customer is benefiting, to ensure that the house buyer is happy, is safe, is secure throughout the process of that transaction. And while doing that, your focus is on your investment. And all of this is where we see the innovation and transformation in property technology. Let me just see how I'm doing with time, okay? And so again, just to also talk about some success of global Proptech. I mean, this slide is really old. I think this was from NFX. Okay, NFX as at end of 2018, but it's reported as 2019. If you look at this slide, I mean, I've just what I'm trying to do here is to show some Proptech companies, okay, who are under, under 2 decades ago, who just launched. Today, Zillow, I think Zillow has acquired Trulia, which today market capitalization is in excess, I think it's in their 20s or 30s of billions of dollars. There is Open Door that launched in 2013, which is less than, that's just about 7 years, with valuation in excess of $2 billion. There's Compass, there's Redfin. And so this just goes to prove the point that the opportunities for Proptech is here, and there is no better partnership to do this than traditional real estate developers or traditional real estate players really working with a lot of the startups that we have across the region. And to kind of sum up what this is in terms of how would you define property technology. And I pulled this up from Proptech 101, which was a book written by Aaron Block and Zach Aarons. And in their summation, the way property is bought, sold, leased, financed, designed, built, managed, and marketed is what is property technology. Again, if you look at this and compare it to the work that CAD did on the value chain, it is basically telling you that across these various steps of buying a property, selling a property, leasing a property, financing a property, designing a property, building a property, managing a property, and marketing a property, across each of those steps, we can begin to deploy technology that ensures and enhances the customer experience. And once you are doing this, you are in the Proptech space already. And whether it is driverless cars, whether it is property, whether it is your health, and it's very interesting as I also move to conversations around sustainable development goals to understand that what the inflection point of COVID-19 has also shown us is that really housing, especially at the low to middle income level, should actually be a health agenda. And so some of the conversations that we're having, or some of the discussions that we're pushing using sustainable development and property technology is to say that, communities, municipalities, governments at different levels should begin to see housing as a health agenda. Because in all of the conversations and in everything that we've seen during COVID-19, stay home and stay safe. How do you stay safe if you do not have a house? So beyond just housing as a social good or an economic good, the proposition here is that housing should actually become a health agenda. And so you don't want to begin to separate housing from health. And how is Proptech helping to do this? We've seen in other claims where property technology has been used in terms of looking at in terms of Internet of Things, where there are installations of hardware that helps in managing and monitoring the health of individuals at homes. And so that intersection again between health and housing is being deployed using Proptech. And that's another opportunity that both the health practitioners and the housing practitioners can actually come together to start to deploy some sort of Proptech solutions. Zero wastage, which is totally around circular economy. So I'll give an example. And circular economy also relates to a lot of the things that is happening on sustainable development goals. So for example, landlord's technology. Landlord's technology, which is also property technology startup that I'm involved in, is looking at highbrow areas across Nigeria and looking at empty properties that people are not letting. And what are we doing? We are basically financing, taking up these properties from landlords, okay, at discounted rates of anywhere between 10 to 25%, paying the landlords of those properties, and then having to let out these properties on a monthly basis, whether it is office space or residential space, having to let out these properties on a monthly basis for people to occupy them. So what's happening is that rather than people traveling from suburban parts of Lagos, or I mean, there's really no suburban, Lagos is all urban. So let's say traveling from a 3-hour or 4-hour journey from Lagos to get to their office, they can actually on a monthly basis stay close to work. So what we are doing is helping to turn those properties, that are empty to being used. And that's circular economy. And that is responsible, production in terms of sustainable development goals. And so you are having a lot of solutions, however you think of it, around the value chain for real estate. And so landlord technology is just one playing in this place, in this space. You have a couple of others like Monster and Split, whose business model are different. But what is happening is that property technology is actually helping to provide the foundation for a lot of the business model that we're beginning to see across the region. And so in terms of data to the market, today, it's a lot easier to get information in Nigeria than it was, say, another 7 to 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. Thank God for a lot of the work that the yearbook is doing. Thank God for a lot of the institutions like NMRC and the Federal Mortgage Bank who are providing us data to be able to put in public space. When we started to do the state of the housing report in 2009, we were very keen on having hard copies because, first of all, the cost of doing the report, and we wanted to recoup funding. But today, a lot of the reports that we're doing are placed online, and you have Proptech startup whose goal is putting information and data online. For example, the NMRC has the HMIP, and there is Estate Intel. There is Real Estate Information Center, which we're also pushing from the pricing end. And it is the foundation of Proptech that is enabling us to put all of this data to where people can actually use this data. And that is helping the market in different ways in terms of what kind of data is coming out, how valid is it, in terms of the completeness of the data, the timeliness with which data can come out. So unlike before, where we would have to wait, to publish the the data and kind of put it in hard copies. Today, on a monthly basis, you can get information in some of these platforms that I've mentioned. And it's also helping with data integrity as you begin to look at where information is coming from across the market. And so what Proptech is basically also helping to do is removing opacity in the market in terms of data. And once that opacity in the market is removed, it makes the problem very clear. And so investors are looking at a market where they can actually see what's going on. So for example, we publish the Global House Price Index on a quarterly basis. We've had people from all parts of the world, looking at the house price indices, and we're able to share all of this with them, in a way that ensures that they can take investment decisions. And this is all because of deploying technology to be able to do all of this. And that's just an example of the house price index that we're doing on a quarterly basis. Now, how is Proptech also helping? I've come to planning and regulations. I think I have just 7 minutes, about 6 minutes for this session, so I think I'll just run through. So I talked about the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority and how they are helping planning and regulation. And so what's very important here is that a lot of the data that is needed by investors are already warehoused in the different departments in Lagos State. And this is not just Lagos State. I think across municipalities, across the region, you will find this same challenge. So whether it is the Ministry of the registration and titling, there is data already available, humongous data. But what's happening is there is no public access to this data. The way these data are stored, the way they are analyzed, you cannot use it. And so what Lasira basically has gone ahead to do is to create a portal that integrates all of the different departments in the state to provide information to it, which they now put to the public domain. Now, how else would this have been done? Okay, but what we have done in building the Lasira portal is to also say that in terms of regulating real estate development and agency business, there is a lot of data that is out there that private sector developers have. And so the platform has been created in such a way, like I mentioned before, that you can actually go to the back end of the platform and know what exactly is happening across the states. And what we are finding is that we have seen a lot of interest, a lot of people, even though it's just a new portal and the data is not where it should be. But the trend that we are noticing is that if I look at a particular area at the back of the portal, I can actually see what kind of transaction is coming up. I can see how many tenancy transactions were carried out on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. And this is helping planning within the housing space in the sector. And so this is how property technology, again, like I said, across the value chain is helping. And it is impacting the sustainable development goals. If you look at this slide, what landlord's technology has done is to identify 12 of the sustainable development goals where Proptech is impacting in terms of no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, climate action, and partnership for the goals. Now, pushing sustainable development goals, within the next 10 years, Proptech has a huge role to play. I just gave one example about responsible consumption and production, which was when I talked about empty properties across the country in Nigeria. And I think this is not just in Nigeria. I'm sure that in highbrow cities across the region, you find a lot of these empty properties. And so how do you achieve goal 12? Using Proptech, okay? We're taking out the properties from the landlords and What are we doing? We are ensuring that we get people into those properties at rates that they can pay and are broken down installments or monthly basis. Besides that example, let me go to sustainable. Let me go to goal 13, which is climate action. Climate action, we're talking about emissions, gas emissions. We're talking about, excuse me, being kind to the environment. Imagine someone who travels 3 hours every day to work, stays in traffic, and travels 3 hours back home, staying in traffic. What is happening? There's a lot of emission of gases, toxic gases into the atmosphere. So what we have done in an example of land loss technology is to say you don't have to travel 3 hours. Yes, you need to pay 2 years rent or you need to pay a year's rent. We've broken down to a monthly basis. Get a house close to where you work and save the planet all of that emissions that you are driving for 6 hours a day to get to work. And this is how Proptech is impacting sustainable development goals. And I can go across all of these identified 12 goals, on how Proptech, on different examples of different startups providing different solutions that are impacting the sustainable development goals. Again, this is just a reminder that this is what we must do when we get to a strategic inflection point that COVID-19 has brought us into. And I think because of time, I'll just rush through the remaining slides. What needs to happen? We need to become early adopters of Proptech. We need to become early adopters of Proptech. When there's a strategic inflection point, like I said, at the dissonance group, you have people who are basically not believing or not wanting to do this. But all of us listening here and looking at what this is, I think at every point in time, in whatever opportunity that we'll find ourselves, in whatever places that we're speaking about real estate, I think we need to become early adopters. So that the laggards, by the time the laggards and the late majority are joining us, we would have gone far. And it becomes very important. And I'm saying this also for a lot of the traditional real estate players who are on in this conference and who have been having the time with us in this presentation. And so, just to look at a quick timeline of how things have evolved in the listing in the property business in Nigeria. So, for example, this slide was also presented last year at the Nigerian Property Technology conference that we had at the Co-Atlantic City by Northcote. So, pre-2000, you had print and newspaper and advertising when you wanted to get a home. So the tenant, the agent, and the landlord, everybody goes to look at the newspaper, pre-2000. Today, what's happening is you are at Marketplace 3.0, where you can actually do a transaction on the portal, where you can make payment on the portal after going to look at the property that you want to rent or you want to buy. And so this is just an example. I would have gone through this timeline, but I think we're on the hour mark already. And so I think that's basically it. I think I'll just stop here and take a pause, and I will bring in the panelists. I think if there are other things that we need to look at so that we don't run out of time, I'll bring in the panelists, and then I'll probably come up to my presentation again. But it's just important to mention, to show a mapping of the Proptech startup in Nigeria. So if you look at this slide, this doesn't yet capture the over 75 Proptech startup that we have. But across property listing and search services, across short stay apartments, across property and community management, across data and analytics, investment and financing, flexible living, co-working, you have a gamut of Proptech startups who are providing solutions in Nigeria. And I'm just Hello. Hello. So, am I losing you guys? Am I losing you? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Can you hear me? Jide, can you hear me?
Yeah, Roland, I can hear you.
Okay. I think I got disrupted. So I don't know if Mire can bring on our other panelists so we can jump into our panel session. Mire, can you help me? I think we need some help with our other panelists to join the session. Okay, I think we can just go ahead and allow the other panelists to join us. Jide, right? So maybe you want to share your screen and so basically, Mr. Jide Odusolu is the CEO for Up2 5. He's a veteran in the real estate business. I've known him for, I can't remember when, but I know he's been in this business for over 2 decades. And it's very exciting for me to see a traditional real estate player, being very passionate and aggressive about property technology. And so as we jump into our panel session, okay, we're beginning to get some of the panelists. I think Oluwa Nifemi, welcome on board.
Hi.
So just give us another 1 minute or so. So
that's
we can
perfect for me because I'm trying to set up. Yep, thanks.
Okay, so yeah. While we wait for our other panelists to join us. Okay, well, Jevan, how are you doing? Good to have you here, Jevan.
I'm fine. You can see me?
Yes, I can see you, Jevan. Good to have you.
Oh, yeah.
Good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. We're just holding on for.
Yeah.
Roland. Yes,
Roland,
please.
I think you have to close your own screen sharing before I can enable mine.
Okay, I already did that. Yeah, I'm not sharing screen anymore.
Not allowing me here.
Can you still see my screen?
I can't see your screen, but mine is not going on. So.
Is the computer button activated?
Yes, it is.
It's activated, right? Yeah, then you should be able to, and then go to the application window.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah, technology.
It's crazy. It worked earlier on, so.
Yeah, I know.
It happens.
Roland, let me log out and log back in. Is that okay?
Okay, great. So while we're waiting for Jide to come on with his presentation, I just want to welcome Oluwanifemi and Devon to this session, which is the Proptech Masterclass. Thank you very much for joining us. I think while we wait for Jide, I'll start with you, Oluwanifemi. Just give a brief introduction of yourself. And then we'll move on to Jevan, and then hopefully I'm sure Jide will join us. So go ahead, Oluwanifemi.
Okay, thanks for having me. Oluwanifemi. I'm a reporter for TechPoint Africa, Africa's leading news media platform. I report on startups in Africa, and I cover different sectors from agri-tech to fintech, logistics and mobility, and also Proptech. And I've written a number of articles analyzing how tech is being adopted in all these industries. Thanks for having me again.
Great, thanks. Jevan, just a brief introduction.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Thanks for having me. My name is Jevan Otieno. I'm a property valuer in profession. Have a background in real estate, in practicing under valuation, and I'm also a Proptech enthusiast. So I founded a Proptech Kenya Association after I discovered late last year that there's a kind of disconnect between the tech side and the professional side, where I saw there was a need to bring the two parties together so we can see how we can come together and collaborate. Proptech is all about collaboration, how we can collaborate and see how we can solve our problems by leveraging technology. Yeah, I think that's my short bio.
Great. And Madite is also joining us from South Africa. Madite happens to be doing a lot of work with the Asia Proptech forum, where there's some kind of part. I mean, just go ahead, Madite. Tell us a bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the conversation proper.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Roland, for the invitation to the conference. I think this is always great having like-minded enthusiasts across the continent and even elsewhere around the world. I guess engaging and finding solutions in terms of how to take PropTech forward on the continent. So my name is Madite Mwalusi. I'm based in South Africa. I'm a property entrepreneur. I'm also a PropTech enthusiast. So as Dr. Roland had, initially had mentioned, I'm a founder of a PropTech company called SIH PropTech, where we work with PropTech companies globally, including investors. One thing that I'm really passionate about, and I hope to get a chance to talk about, is an upcoming initiative that I've been engaging Dr. Roland on, called Love the City, where we are working with Asia PropTech. We're telling the story of urbanization in cities and how that is impacting communities, on different levels. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to engaging with you guys.
All right, great. I don't know if Jide is ready now.
Roland, I'm here, but I just been told that you can't share screen with 5 panelists. That's what I just understood from admin. So I guess I'll have to just talk through what we're doing.
Okay.
So you probably can just ask me questions and I'll talk through it, I guess.
Okay, great. And so we're going to start this panel session with Jide just taking us through. Like I said, part of my focus for the Nigerian Proptech Association is to get traditional real estate players I call them traditional because they have muscle, they have resources, they are old, you know, they are not they are not young guys, you know, but having them get into the PropTech space is very exciting for me. And I know that they will help a lot of our young. So Mr. Jide Odusolu, I'll start the panel session with you. Tell us of how you are engaging the PropTech world and how you have been able to transition to property technology in Nigeria and what you're doing.
All right, yeah. Thanks, Roland. Well, interesting thing is, I'll take a cue from where you stopped in your presentation, and that's the value of data and transparency as far as the real estate industry is concerned. As everybody knows, Nigeria is a large market. Unfortunately, I couldn't present the slides, but the Nigeria market, if you dimension it, can be divided into three broad spectrums. The largest sector that everybody talks about is the mass poor, which is basically about 40 million Nigerians at the last count. And these are people that require social housing, which is basically government driven to get homes. The middle market is what you'd call what you could say the mass affluent. The mass affluent, which is not the middle, but that's the top end of mass affluent. Basically, are about 20 million Nigerians who have enough income on a monthly basis to afford to own homes. And then you then have the one between the mass poor and the mass affluent, which are basically working career Nigerians who depend on rental homes for living. What we discovered as a real estate developer, as a development company, was that a large group of Nigerians who want to own homes have two problems. One, they are unable to access funding. So mortgages are quite poor in Nigeria, as everybody knows. They're not unable to access funding. They're cynical about the typical bank financing that is available in the market, which tends to be expensive. So what most developers have been doing over the years, increasingly, is to provide what we call developer financing. And developer financing basically is you're giving people opportunity to buy homes on instrumental payment plans. Okay, and one of the things that we kept on asking ourselves is, how do we broaden the base of the market? How do you get more of the over 20 million Nigerians who can actually afford to buy homes using instrumental plans to actually key into those plans? And we found that a lot of people don't have information, have high trust deficits, and are not sophisticated enough to be able to tap into many of those opportunities. Conversely, most of these people also do what you call instrumental saving programs. These are like, I think they've got them like the M-Pesa kind of schemes that you have in Eastern Africa. There's a popular one that they have in Somalia. I forgot what it's called, where people basically remit money from the diaspora back home. I forgot what it's called again. But in Nigeria, we call it Esusu, basically monthly saving schemes. And a lot of Nigerians actually tie into this, where they save money towards targeted investments. So we asked ourselves, how do you create a model that enables people to do that in housing? And that's what led us to creating STOW. STOW basically is a save-to-own housing program. It is not a rent-to-own program. It is a program designed for first-time home buyers who really want to get on the property ladder, have regular income, but cannot afford capital investments. So what STOW basically does is created a platform which is powered by our partner banks, and it's digital. So you download the app or you go on the web portal, which is called stow.ng. You sign on and you can save as low as about 50,000 naira, which is roughly about $150 a month. And you can save that money on a monthly basis towards home ownership. Now, when you're saving that money towards home ownership, you're keyed into developer provided housing. So basically, it's a mix of brick and mortar and technology. So you're not saving money just to saving sake. You're saving money towards home ownership. Now, remember I said transparency is a problem, trust is a deficit. As developers, what we then have done is to create projects which are then back-ended onto the STOW platform. So somebody wants to buy a home that's worth $12,000, which is roughly about 5 to 6 million naira. They can sign on to that home, and they can be paying $200 monthly for a 5-year period to take ownership of that home. And we've done that. And to do that, again, you spoke about being innovators and early adopters. I think we're up to 5 is a hybrid of the two, because what we've done as developers is to take brick and mortar and simplify and break it down to a way that over 25 to 30 million Nigerians who are regular income earners can tap into. And then as innovators, we're creating this platform, and then we're convincing other developers to onboard. Now, Store is targeted at first-time homeowners, so we're not trying to do rental housing. We're not trying to create a product for investors really to do bulk purchases. We're basically targeting first-time homeowners who are partnering with us to buy homes. And then what we've also done is to work with agencies like the Nigerian Mortgage Refinance Corporation and Abe Building Society and Home-Based Building Society, which have 2 mortgage banks in Nigeria, to provide access to mortgage plans for people that sign on to this program. So basically, through this program, you address the issue of credit history, which most Nigerians don't have because we don't borrow. And then you address the issue of being able to access long-term funding. So we launched Stow in October. We're in testing phase right now. And as of today, we have approximately 1,000 people who are in our beta phase. These are 1,000 subscribers who have just downloaded the app on their own and they're interacting with it. Our goal is to, month on month, build up to a situation where we can have between 10,000 to 20,000 subscribers on the Stow platform within the next year. Like I said, we're developers. What we're doing is we're bringing on board other developers, so it becomes a digital marketplace. When you create that digital marketplace, you're able to then refine what the market wants to buy, what the market wants to see, and at the same time, you're then able to tap into the longer-term financing that is out there for housing, but doesn't come into Nigeria simply because the opportunities are not there. So what I've tried to do is just give a snapshot of what we're trying to do, because unfortunately I can't present the slides, but I will share the slides with you later, and then you can probably dissect questions from there. Roland? Hello? Can you hear me?
I think we lost Drew now.
Yeah, I think we lost Dr. Roland.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well.
Or maybe you can continue presenting until he maybe comes back on.
Okay. Well, I'll try and do that. The unfortunate thing is that I really wish I could share the slides, which I can't. But if it could, it would have been perfect, because it would help us to understand exactly what we're trying to do. Because what we realized is that there are over 20 million Nigerians who can actually afford to buy homes priced at about 15 to 20 million naira. That's about $32,000 US. They can afford to buy it, but they can't get it because it's not made available. And what you then find as a developer is, if you're trying to key into a large market, you've got to create a product that attracts that market. And that market really wants product that they can buy and they can pay instrumentally for over that period of time. You find that in Nigeria today, over 65% of the career professionals, which is roughly about 25, 30 million Nigerians, pay between $1,600 to $4,000 equivalent per annum towards rental. Those people would gladly take that money and pay it towards home purchase plan if it existed. So that's what we're doing with Stow. So with Stow, we're creating a digital marketplace. We're building individual credit history, aggregating consumer data, making transparency and flexibility available to first-time home investors, making it accountable because it has because of the trust deficiency, it's got a live feed to every project that you onboard on Stow. So people can actually monitor the progress of work on any site that they're invested in. And because they're paying on a monthly basis, if at any point in time they're not satisfied with the progress of work, they can hold back their payments. So the investor is actually in control. And then with the back-end integration with the NMRC mortgage marketplace, the mortgage investors can also see your monthly payment plans, and they can actually confirm that, okay, you're viable. And so you find more people being pre-qualified for mortgages, and you can then build the mortgage market in Nigeria, which is really quite poor right now. Of course, for the developer, What that also does is developer now can focus on actually developing those projects rather than creating the market at the same time. So your marketing cost goes down because what Stow does, it creates a digital marketplace. So as more people on board with Stow, less funds have to go towards direct marketing initiatives. And you can put that money back in development, and then the people that are investing, people that are buying into the homes can actually come onto the platform and on a monthly basis see new projects coming up. Part of the long-term plan is at the end of the day, by the time all these projects are completed, you can also trade them. You can trade them. You can actually trade what you call your options. So you subscribe, you've only paid 25%, 30% towards the home that's being built off plan. By the time the house is being finished, the value has gone up. You can sell it for a premium, and the person who is buying it actually takes over your payment plans. So we are like a depository and a clearinghouse, both for developers and for home buyers. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, Jide, could I ask you a question? Because I'm actually doing it's my detail here. We're actually doing a campaign with Asia Proptech where we're looking at like the 6 fastest growing cities across different continents. Africa, Lagos being the largest city on the continent. How do you think with the urbanization that is going to be happening, how are developers gonna look at that affordable housing market?
You're quite right. Lagos is literally probably the 4th largest city. I mean, one of the top 20 in the world. I know that. I think it's probably the 4th largest in Africa right now. And it keeps growing. And unfortunately, it is growing and it's also getting slumified. And I say it's getting slumified because you don't find enough projects developing homes targeted at the affordable housing sector. And the reason is that same problem of flexibility and accessibility. So that's part of what a Stow plan that we're creating, for example, is designed to resolve. So we have a project that's coming up on the outskirts of Lagos, around where you have the Dangote refinery. Okay, we're going to be doing 500 housing units over there. And the whole idea behind it is to develop 500 units for people who are buying homes priced to $12,000 and the top end of about $40,000, but they don't have to pay all of it upfront. They can be paying $200 on a monthly basis towards owning those homes. And we believe that the only way you can arrest the growth of slum is to create structured cities. And if you're as a developer, you're going to create structured cities, you've got to have a captive market. You see, it's like chicken and egg. So developers run away from creating those cities because they're worried about carrying costs. But when you create a market and you have regular pre-confirmed and pre-qualified offtake, you resolve that issue. And that's what we're working towards. We believe that Lagos, Port Harcourt, Kano, Abuja are the largest cities in Nigeria that are viable, because in all of these cities, 75% of the career professionals live in rental or accommodation in sub-serviced communities. That is a huge market. Well, it depends how you look at it. You see it as a huge problem. We see it as a huge market.
Okay, great. Sorry, guys. I think we're talking about Proptech and technology, and I think that I got logged out. I had some technical issues. Thank you very much, Jide. I'm hoping that you're just stopping your conversation, right? Though I didn't catch about half of it, but I'm sure as the conversation goes on, we can catch up. I'll move quickly to you, Oluwadifemi, right? I've read your very interesting and inciting article about Proptech and and I really like your thoughts about Proptech, even though, like I said, I don't quite agree with it, but you've just heard a traditional real estate player coming to the Proptech space, talking about the Stow app and all of that. I think this is the time to bring you in. You've also heard my presentation. So I want you to shoot. What are your thoughts? Researching the entire continent in terms of Proptech space. So what are your thoughts and where do you think Proptech is?
Thank you, Roland. It's quite interesting that I might want to be the middle ground here in this conversation, since you all are players in the Proptech industry, and I'm just quite an observer. Okay, so I was able to put up all I observed during my research, that yes, because of the kind of peculiarities with Africa, with the African continent, it is very, very open to a lot of innovations, because where you find problem, as Jide mentioned, we might see it as problems, but for entrepreneurs, for tech entrepreneurs, there are problems to be solved, and there are opportunities, right? So I saw that, yes, these tech companies like are getting over. We have, like, according to your research, you found more than 75 Proptech startups in Nigeria alone. South Africa having like 45. It means that there is a problem to be solved, and everyone is finding a way to solve them. But this is the part I'm coming in from as an observer. Yes, you are solving the problem, and don't get me wrong, this is not a blame on the Proptech startups. It is a fundamental problem that housing is a very acute challenge in let's say in big cities in Africa, right? And when you talk about big cities, there's every tendency that you have the very poor urban dwellers, the middle class urban dwellers, and the high income earners urban dwellers. So now, if you're bringing a solution to a place that everyone is involved, including the poor, having the solution not reaching those that really need it. If you get what I'm trying to say now, those that need it, the urban poor, those that are living in the slums, or those that are just staying on the streets, or people that just spend the night wherever it meets them. When the solution can't reach them, then I think there is a lapse somewhere. There's a lapse somewhere, and I will repeat again: this is not a fault of the Proptech startups. And I'm glad that you all are players there. And some people I spoke to, nobody, no founder is ready to admit that there's a kind of social profiling in the kind of solution you are offering.
Oh my God!
No one will accept that.
Social profiling.
Yes, social class profiling. That is what I'll call it. Because even speaking with people working in my level, and those that are just a bit above my level, they still might not be able to afford a place from a Proptech startup. For a person that is earning, say, 200,000 a month, and a weekly payment or a monthly payment of, say, a bedroom flat from a Proptech startup is costing up to 125,000 naira a month, and you're supposed to spend like 30% of your monthly salary on rent. How do you want to do that? So the problem, which I rightly stated in the article I wrote, was that it is not the fault of Proptech startups. It is just the fundamental challenge they met on ground, and that is scarcity of housing units. There's nothing Proptech startups can do about it. Jide mentioned the other time that founders usually look at the cost they are going to incur in providing these solutions. Everybody is doing business to make gains. You will not because I want to be. Are you a charity organization? No. You're not because you want to solve a social problem and run into debt. When you know we are not going to get the profit back. No. So the problem is the underlying factor of scarce housing units. Which I brought in the government.
Okay, great. Great, Oluwanifemi. Just hold your thoughts, and we'll come back to this. And I think the main point for what you're saying is to say, look, Proptech can be as fantastic as they are, and all of that, but there is a fundamental issue of the role that government needs to play and the scarcity for housing. Jevan, I want you to come in at this point, okay? Also looking at the Kenya market. And vis-a-vis what Oluwanifemi just also discussed, where is the Kenyan Proptech market is at? And are you experiencing this same issue in terms of what the role of government needs to be? Go ahead, Jevon. Jevon, can you hear me? I think you're muted. Jevon, if you unmute yourself, I think you're muted. Jevon, can you hear me now? We can't hear you. Can any other person hear Jevon?
No, we can't hear him.
No, we can't. I think he's still on mute.
Jevon, you're still on mute. While we're waiting for Jevon, Madite, I'd just like to take your to hear your thoughts around
right now.
Okay.
Jevon is back. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Jevon. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Can you repeat what you asked? My connection has been buffering.
Okay. So I was saying quickly because of time. I was saying that looking at the role of government, okay, listening to what Oluwanifemi said in terms of the fact that there are fundamental problems. Also following from Jide's presentation, there are fundamental problems that the Proptech industry cannot solve. And I'm saying, how is this playing out in the Kenyan market? What are the challenges that Proptech may be having concerning whether it's social class profiling or how founders want to deal with certain categories of people?
Well, what she has said is actually true, and the part where I think there's need for government intervention. You see, like what's happening here in Kenya is like, for PropTech, there's need for, let me say, how will I put it? Well, I'm trying to find the right words for it, but then, well, what I'll say is that the government is, especially from the digital registry part, where we need the government to come on board. Like for PropTech cannot come up with solutions if the whole system is based on the whole system and the whole transactions that are happening is still based on traditional way of doing things, and there are things where PropTech cannot handle because they are being bounded by policies. They're being bounded by these associations where they are having the code of conduct, where now they have stipulated their ways of doing stuff. Like if I give an example, like valuation, it's not easy to come up with these automated valuation models because they're being bounded by their valuation act upon which which methods are being allowed for you to use and come up with this estimate of value. So what we need, of course, for PropTech to thrive, we need each and every player to come on board, from the government side, the public, the government side, the private sector, the tech people, the professionals. We need to come on board because we are in that stage where we haven't really figured out how exactly we can incorporate technology into our industry. The thing is, we are still in developed nations that PropTech is in a much advanced stage. But then we see it's not all about we cannot just copy and paste. We cannot just copy and paste what has been done in UK or Australia. We just copy it and do it in the African setting. We need to figure out on our own way, okay, with the way our system is, with the way the industry runs, how best can we incorporate the technology. And I like the way you had broken down the value chain. Now it's upon us, it's upon you as an look like, okay, this is how this the value chain usually goes around. This is how we access land. This is how the construction materials are done in the Kenyan setting. So how best can we do that? And the government is needed on board. And what Kenya, and I would like to point out that the government are really trying to come on board, especially with fastening in digitizing the registries, where at least now blockchain applications we can now see them being actually implemented, being now coming to use. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what I say.
Oh, great, great, interesting. I'm going to come to the blockchain conversation. I'm happy that the Kenyan government is already doing that, Jevan. So, Madita, we'll quickly move over to you in terms of what are you saying in South Africa, and then your work with your work at SHI with the Asia Proptech. What are you saying, with the emergence of property technology? Over to you, Madita.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Dr. Roland. I think the main thing is, I think what we're all seeing. I think pre-COVID, I think what we saw was that Proptech had not advanced as much as it should have, and I think it definitely those conversations where all parties, from government, the private sector, investors, actually come on board and actually work together, because the idea is to create viable solutions for communities. One of the main things that the government here wants to do is actually to do smart city innovations, and that's where you then start building smart cities, which it would include affordable housing, things like malls, schools, churches, retail, and be able to then start building communities around themselves. So I mean that is something that is going to happen over time. But I think COVID also has kind of changed that model. Where you're seeing working from home being one of the main things. I think we're all talking the same thing. Solutions need to be relevant to the people that it's made for it to be effective. It has to be affordable as well. Especially if it's going to be something within the affordable housing space, so that it gets adopted by a lot of people. I always use the WhatsApp example. I always say the beauty of WhatsApp is that it's one of the most well used applications globally. You don't have to think twice about how to use it. And I think PropTech needs to use that similar model. To avoid creating solutions that your everyday person that actually needs it will not adapt it into their basic lives. And I think that's what we are doing with Love Your City. So Love Your City is really focused on this urbanization story that we are seeing across the continent. It's looking at how cities are going to be impacted from building construction, from energy, from security, from utilities, ICT as a whole. So you touched on the fintech story. PropTech is from fintech, and the evolution is about how is PropTech going to really create an enabling value chain for everybody that comes on board. So we are looking at innovation that comes from startups. We want the private sector to get involved, and it's about the innovation and how it's really impacting communities on the ground. And how we look at it is property and technology will never work without the people. So yeah, so that basically is how we redefining conversations around PropTech. We're using social media, we're using YouTube, we're using emails to be able to communicate that story about what PropTech is about on the continent. Make the information relevant, and it has to reach the people.
All right, thank you very much, Madite. Thank you very much. I'm going to try and quickly go around once again before I also take some questions from the participants. So, Adoluwani Femi, based on the conversation, the same experience, seems to, or that fundamental problem exists, I must tell you, across the region. And I think General had also just mentioned that, in Kenya. So I want to ask, right? So in your view, what do you think the PropTech guys industry should be doing to be able to get government in? I mean, it's good to hear your perspective because you're speaking from like an outside, an outside person, and then you're taking a whole regional view. So from your experience, what do you think should be happening? How should founders, try and solve this problem, especially also going down market to the lower income category?
Okay, I believe you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, very well. Okay, I'm going to say that I won't want to be a pessimistic person right now. I would say it will get to a time that PropTech startups can actually solve this problem. But for now, I would recommend that these players actually enter into conversation with the government. I want to believe that the government are also looking at how they can solve these problems. So now you present yourself to them that we are trying to solve the same problem. So we can just collaborate on some, especially the part of building housing units, developing um, locations in some parts of the city that are not high end. So you can just that I mean PropTech players can just collaborate with the government to address that part, because for now this is bigger than the PropTech startups, and we cannot but bring the government into it. So I would recommend the first step to go is to collaborate, enter into discussion with the government and collaborate with them in building housing units. Then, apart from that, there are current traditional establishments from the government. So when you introduce to them technological solutions that can be brought that can be brought on board in those what's it called, sectors, commissions, then the government will be able to understand that technology can actually solve a lot of problems. And when you bring them into this conversation, they would be willing to embrace the solutions you bring. So I believe there's no how you can remove the government from this conversation. So it just has to do with collaboration and providing them with solutions that can help. That's what I think.
Okay. Thank you very much. I mean, I also wanted to see that from your point of view. And the example that I gave about the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority, that's exactly what is happening. Okay, it's a startup, that is working with Lagos State government, to be able to create that. And I mean, I think at Jane Philip just asked a question to say government cannot, if you go to the charts, that government cannot come into the technology, cannot bring technology across the entire value chain. And Jane Philip was asking that which part should government come in? And I just responded to say that I think it's in planning and regulation. Because the thing is, once there's planning and once there's regulation, once you have data, the market becomes very clear. Opacity is removed, and then investors, private sector money can come in, right? And I think that's where the startups will continue to come, because the startups have the innovation, they have the technology, they have the ideas. As it is, government at times is too big to move or to be dynamic. So that's why, to your point, I agree clearly, all hope is not lost. Examples of Las Rira can continue across the country, and that's the way I would like to put it. Devon, I want to hear more quickly, as we are running out of time before I come back to Jimmy. I want to hear more about blockchain. What was the process for blockchain technology that the Kenyan government is now administering, or that they are now doing? Was it an entirely government project, or this was some partnership with private sector?
No. Oh well, for the I don't think there is a blockchain project that is currently underway, because for blockchain to first be implemented, we need the information, the data that is in the registries to be digitized first. So like the government has taken the first step in digitizing the whole ministry, the whole registry. So the first step that taken is uh, digitizing. But then I've been having conversation has been there about how we can now take up blockchain applications, how we can now incorporate it. But now the blockchain in our country is mainly focused in fintech, because fintech is the sector that has been developed, if you compare to proptech, so blockchain is just in fintech base, but not in the property sector. But then we're waiting to see when they complete this is the
Digitization.
digitizing. That's when we see now progress in terms of how the two will merge.
Okay, thank you very much. So I want to come to Jide. Since launching the product, the stove product, which I think is a fantastic product. I mean, I may think it's a fantastic product because I'm a Proptech enthusiast and I'm happy about anything Proptech. But you have the real numbers. What is it like? How the market taking this? What kind of traction is happening? Just to also not to paint a very rosy picture, but to also give a honest view to other traditional real estate players who might want to come into the PropTech space, especially across that value chain.
Yeah, thanks, Roland. First, direct answer to your question. It has been very interesting. We launched it in October, in the midst of all of the COVID, and in the midst of NSAS. Okay, and surprisingly, we've had over 24,000 people organically inquiring about the app, and we have 1,000 subscribers already onboarded. Now, the projects that we're actually introducing have not been onboarded.
I hope I've been onboarded, please.
Beg your pardon?
I hope I have been onboarded.
If you've downloaded the app and you've actually signed on to it, then yes, you would have been onboarded. We have 1,000 people already onboarded. Now, the interesting thing for us is this. We view PropTech as a solution source, and it's all about building skill and efficiency, and that's what we see it as. I understand what Oluwanifemi is saying, but I haven't had the unfair advantage of also working in government. I can tell you that government is the least capable person to drive this sector. Government lacks the resources and the know-how to push the solutions you're hoping they will push. At the end of the day, it's a risk and value analysis. The only reason why, as a developer, I'm going to go and invest in Oshodi. For those who are not aware of Lagos, Oshodi is a transport nerve center in Lagos, okay? The only reason I'll go and invest in Oshodi is I'm going to ask myself, is there a market? Is it a viable market? Can they afford to pay for my solution? If I say to them, pay me 50,000 naira monthly towards home ownership, can they pay? What is my risk if they pay? Are they going to vandalize my homes? Can I get them out if they're not the right kind of occupant I want? So these are the concerns that you find drive the reason for many solutions being situated in eyebrow areas, first and foremost. But we believe that there is high value in the middle market. I love the way you illustrated it, people at your level, you said. I mean, you're an income earner. And the way we look at it is that the threshold should be anybody who is earning a minimum of 150,000, 200,000 naira monthly, which is roughly what, about $200 or less, about $250, should be able to acquire a home using PropTech solutions. Because somebody said it earlier on, PropTech is like fintech. It's all about broadening the base and also making it possible for many more people to acquire it. So we're excited with the results we're getting so far. Again, like I said, this is in the midst of a pandemic and in the midst of an economic crisis. So we know that next year is going to be quite good for scaling up on the solutions.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Madite, is Madite still with us or we lost him? Okay, I think we lost him. Okay, so I have a question and I'll just run through some of the questions. Please, if you are not speaking, can you mute? If you are not speaking, please, let's mute because we're having a lot of background noise. So if you are not speaking, let's mute. So I have a question here from Dr. Delphine Sangodei. Delphine is asking that I agree with the need to develop Proptech solutions to unlock real estate sector in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in Nigeria. How do you enforce to take or use properties which are vacant? Does it involve participation of government? What about unfinished projects, which are many which need to be finalized to be used for rental homes? Great question, Delphine. So the first question is, how do you enforce or take or use these properties which are vacant? Now, Delphine, for what I spoke about, there's no way. This is willingness between the landlords and the tenants. Okay, sorry, the landlords and the startup. So in our case, what basically is happening is that landlords have had empty properties for 4 years, 5 years. Okay, they are not able to rent it out. So what we do is to say, I will take this property up, but I will pay you anywhere between 15 to 25% less. You have left the property anyways without any income. So I'm taking it off you now with 25% less, and I'm paying you, on a per annum basis. Chances are you would love to deal. So there's no enforcement. These are not, government cannot take over a property from an individual if he hasn't defaulted or if there's no court judgment or anything. So this is purely a commercial transaction between the startup and the landlords. What we are finding out is that some landlords are even willing to take installment payment, okay, for the property because they've left it and the property has been unproductive. Now, the second question, does it involve participation at all? It doesn't involve any participation with government. But there are government properties all around town that is not inhabited. At that level, engagements and conversations can start with government to be able to take up those properties. But right now, the transactions with landlord technologies are strictly on a commercial basis. Unfinished projects, again, it depends. If unfinished projects are not violating government rules, then I don't think government can take them up. But I usually know that government usually have a time frame to which development should be done. I think from that window, government can move into those projects. Again, for unfinished projects, what a lot of the startup and technology companies are looking at, Proptech companies are looking at, is to negotiate on a commercial basis, i.e., you have 50 units of residential housing here that you haven't finished. As a Proptech startup, can we raise funding to complete this project, either through crowdfunding or some type of funding, so that when the project is completed, we can return money to the investors? And this is where crowdfunding is also now a major financing route for Proptech companies. And the good news is the Security and Exchange Commission in Nigeria is about wrapping up the regulation around crowdfunding. So you are going to see a lot of crowdfunding firms come up into the Proptech space. And so I think that's basically to answer that. I don't know whether Madite is back with us. Okay, I see Kesia, that means it's time up. So I think that's about it that we can. Okay, we have 3 minutes in this session. So final shots from our panelists before we get kicked out. Final thoughts.
Well, I just want to congratulate Kesia and team for putting all of this together and helping drive with the data.
I would love to say that this is a very welcome discussion, conversation. Having conversations like this give hope to the urban city, to urban cities in Africa that it's actually a solution coming to the housing deficit we have and affordability. So I hope conversations like this continue to come up and relevant authorities are carried along to contribute their quota to achieving this. Thank you for
Great.
having me once again.
Jevan?
What I'd like to say is this is just a request to everyone. The Proptech train has already started going, so I'm just want to humbly request everyone to get on board. This is what we're looking at, the future of our profession. So let us, especially the older profession, let us get on board and we see how we can shape the real estate, our own industry for the future, and make it much better, and how we can leverage this whole thing. So it's not something that and also another thing, it's not something that will replace the profession. Actually, if we embrace it the right way, it will be a tool that will actually help us make us do our work much better and much efficient and effective. Yep.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jide. Thank you, Jevan. Thank you, Luanifemi. Thank you, Madite. I think we lost you. For me, this has been very interesting. I'm happy that we are having a lot of ambassadors for Proptech. We will continue to push. I want to thank Asia for the opportunity to continue to push Proptech to the mainstream, and I'm going to continually call on you. What we are looking at, really, my goal is across the region to continue to have people like GJ put their resources, their time, their money in promoting Proptech. So we can have a lot of these case studies that helps other traditional real estate players to come on board. And so I want to also thank all our participants for staying till the end. Just under 100 people with us. And I want to thank everyone and for their comments and for their questions. Over to you, Christian.
Thank you so much, Roland, and everyone. That was really such an engaging discussion. Great. And very interesting comments and conversation coming through on the chat. I agree with you. Proptech is a feature of the landscape now, and we need to work our way into including it in the way in which we all do our work, and in fact create great opportunities for better efficiencies and lower costs. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and really will change the game for affordable housing. So thank you, all of you, for participating this morning and for contributing. And I look forward to the next discussion, because there will be more. Thank you, Roland, for pulling everyone together.
Thank you very much. All right, guys. Thank you.
Excellent. Bye-bye.